Good morning. Good morning. Thank President Jones and faculty and staff and students of Heritage for welcoming us. It's good to be here. I've heard of this school for many, many years. One of your graduates, Willie Glay, works with us in Ghana. I've worked with Willie for many years in the Accra region. That's one with Church of Christ. And in its radio ministry, World Bible School. Willie is a great graduate that you have to be proud of. And then Amanate, I think it's Albert Amanate, who now West Canada. So I've heard about this school for a long time, and I'm glad to be here today. And thank you for this opportunity. When you ask an African preacher to speak for 10 minutes, that's like a punishment. So I wouldn't be true with my introduction in 15 minutes, but I'll keep the time, so don't be afraid. No matter how rich a people are, no matter how wealthy an economy is, there will always be these poor people in need. Yes. And that will not go away. No matter how poor a people are, no matter how poverty-stricken they are, there will still be people among them who will be the poorest of the poor. And that will never go away. And so God places us into these communities of wealth and affluence and communities of poverty and deprivation, so that wherever we may be, we can be His ministers, His ambassadors, His angels, to bring a change, to make life better for people. And when we fail to do that, we have failed God. And we have failed in our primary responsibility to be His people, to shine forth His light to the poor and to the hurting. And so, as we worship and as we serve God, we are reminded that our prayers, our fasting, and all the things we do will not be complete if we neglect those among us who are still hurting, who are still poor, who are still homeless, who are still hungry, who are orphaned and widowed and destitute. That is the challenge that we constantly face. And so, John says, if you see your brother in need of food, you don't tell him to go and come and eat another day. If you have bread to share, share with him. That is how we show the love of God. And if you see a needy person, James says, you don't say you have faith and do nothing about that person. But by helping that person, you show the faith you have. And what does God require of us as pure religion? Is to care for orphaned and abandoned people, is to care for widows in their affliction, and to keep ourselves unspotted from the world. And many times what we do is we reverse the order. We're so much into avoiding sin, we're so much into running away from sin, we're so much into keeping ourselves pure, we're so much into living a holy life. But come to think of it, that was the second part. Pure religion, and undefiled before the Father, is to visit the orphans and the widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. So this morning I just want to bring a word of encouragement that whatever we do, let's remember that. In our communities, in our states, in our nation, across the world, there are hurting people, and God wants us to reach out to them. In Ghana, we thought we were poor people. You know, we've always asked for help from America and help from here and help from there. We are a third world country. We cannot do anything. But then God opened the eyes of the churches of Christ in Ghana to realize that no matter how poor we are, there are people poorer than us. And that we have to reach out to them and not just use our poverty as an excuse for doing nothing. And that began the story of the Village of Hope, to care for orphaned children. So in 1996, we started with 8 children, brought them into a home. The home was built for 12 children, but we started with 8, a married couple as house parents. And then it began to grow. Within a few months, the house meant for 12 children had 18 children in the house. And we realized it's time to expand. And so we contacted our brethren in the United States, we contacted the brethren in Ghana, and we said, we've got to do something. Well, the brethren in America, they did a good thing. They challenged us. They said, if you will buy the property, we will build one house. Well, the property was worth $11,000. It's 25 acres of land, $11,000. And they said, if you will buy the property, we will build you one house. And so we traveled the length and breadth of the country. We went everywhere, and we told the brethren, we've got to buy the property. In 4 months, we raised $11,000, and we bought the property. And when we told the American brethren, they said, what? You did that? Okay, we have to come see it for ourselves. But then we began to expand. Today, Village of Hope has 9 homes, caring for 219 orphans and abandoned children in those homes. We have 10 house parents, 10 couples as house parents, 1 in each home, and then the 10th couple are the relief parents who, when the regular parents go on vacation, they will move into the home and take care of the children there. The children come from all over the country, from all the tribes of Ghana. So in a typical home, you have 18 children with from about 12 different tribes, speaking different local dialects. And so imagine you and your wife, or you and your husband, in a home with 18 kids who don't understand you because they don't speak your language. And you don't understand them because you don't speak their language. And then they don't understand each other because they don't speak each other's language. You know, that is the Village of Hope. But we teach all the kids to speak English. And so it takes about 6 months for them to learn to speak English, and then they begin to communicate with one another. And it's been wonderful. We have about 30 kids who have grown, have graduated, and we have some, like Francis, who is here, who is a lawyer. We have others who are medical doctors, teachers. We have about 5 of them who are teachers, caterers, and so forth and so forth. We have 1 who is an immigration officer. It's a boy who was picked from the marketplace. You know, if you've watched the Aladdin movie, or the cartoon, you see in the beginning that Aladdin is in the marketplace and he's stealing some apples, you know. That was Frank. That was how he lived. He was just stealing food at the marketplace. And I remember when we brought him to the Village of Hope, somebody actually advised me to kick that boy out because he was a thief and he was a criminal and he was going to teach the other children how to steal. I said, well, thank you very much for your advice. But Frank stayed. And today, Frank has completed school and he is an immigration officer. He works for the Ghana Immigration Service. And who knows, one day when you show up in Ghana, he may be the one at the airport stamping your passport and saying, welcome to Ghana. But beyond that, there are many kids who live on the streets. They live on the streets not because they are part of a gang or because they are into drugs. That's not none of that. They are not into any crime. They live on the streets because they have no opportunities. In Ghana, only 40% of 9th graders are able to go to 10th grade. 40%. And only 10% of 12th graders are able to go to college. And so when you're in the 9th grade, you write a national exam with all the students in the nation. And you are competing not with your class, but with the whole nation. And you have to be in the top 40% to be able to go on to high school, which is 10th, 11th, and 12th. And then when, at the end of the 12th grade, you write another exam with all the 12th graders in the nation. And you must be in the top 10% to be able to go to college. And thankfully, thank God, all our kids have always been in the top 10% of their the 9th grade and gone to high school and then gone also to college. So it's been a great blessing in that regard. But then there are other children who end up on the streets. I mean, 60% of 13, 14-year-olds, after the 9th grade, they have nowhere else to go. 60%. So imagine in the state of Alabama, if every year, for the last 30 years, 60% of your 13 and 14-year-olds end up with nowhere to go, no education. That's the end of the education. 9th grade is the end. And so there's a big problem with street children. And we've actually coined a word in Ghana, streetism, children living on the streets. And what we do is we invite them to the church meeting place and we give them a meal. And for many of them, that is the only meal that they get to eat in a whole day, one meal. And the meal is 50 cents. And I tell the young people in America, if you forgo one Dr. Pepper, you know, one can of Dr. Pepper, one can of Coke, and you donate $1, that goes to feed a teenager in Ghana. 2 meals for that $1. And the only difference really between the American youth and the Ghanaian youth is one was born in America, one was born in Ghana. And so these teenagers, we feed them on the streets, we counsel them, And then those who want to move off the street, we take to our vocational training school. It's a trade school where we give them various skills. After 1 year training in tie and dye, tailoring, leatherworks, and baking, and auto mechanics, we give them equipment and we give them $200 as capital, and they start their own business. And that way they are able to move off the streets and become independent, productive citizens of Ghana. So we've been doing that over the last 6 years, and we've trained close to 100 who have graduated, and now we are with us, our 7th group who are now being trained over there. So we also have a street teenagers ministry. And then we have a school. Our school ends up with the 9th grade. We started the school just for the orphans, but then all around us were communities that needed education. And in our communities, all the villages, every parent thought the highest grade the child could go to was the 9th grade. Until our school started graduating students going to high school. And then people started bringing their students to the school. And so now our school has over 700 students, out of which only about 160 are orphans. So the rest, over 600 of them, are from the villages around, about 14 villages. They come to school there, they're able to go to high school and go on. And they pay school fees. Because in Ghana, whether you go to a public school or a private school, you still pay school fees. And by these students coming and paying school fees, the school has become self-supporting. So the school is self-supporting and it's giving, in fact, the Ghana Education Service, which is the government agency responsible for education in Ghana, has rated our school the best elementary school in our state. And that is producing these students. And so starting, we decided we're going to move on and have a high school. Because as I said, 60% of 9th graders drop along the way. And so starting in October of this year, which is in about 3 weeks' time, we're going to start our own high school, which we call Hope College. We refer to high schools as colleges and colleges as universities. And so we're going to start Hope College. We're going to start with the 10th grade, and then next year we'll add the 11th grade, and then the next year we'll have the 12th grade. And we hope to continue with that and educate our students in preparation for a lifetime of character and scholarship and godliness, so that they can serve God and serve the nation. Our goal is to train the future leaders of the church, right there at the very before, and to also train the future leaders of the African continent. Because the problems of corruption and fighting and civil wars and all these bad governance in Africa can only change if we can reach out to the little ones and bring them up right. Finally, we have a medical clinic, which also started just for the orphans, but is now offering services to about 40,000 people in 20 different villages who come there to receive health care. Between the capital city of Accra and the state capital of Cape Coast, there's a 4-hour drive. And in between these two cities, the only dental facility is the village of Hope. Imagine driving for 4 hours. And it's not a desert place. I mean, there are towns and cities and villages in between, but that is the only place that we have a dental facility. In Ghana, the dentist-patient ratio is 1 to 100,000. One dentist to 100,000. And so we offer that service, and we offer medical care also to care for them. But the good news is that God has blessed the work. It's a partnership between our brethren in the United States and the churches in Ghana, and we're working together. And because of that, many children have moved out of the village group. And what's more interesting is that they have even gone on to plant churches. We have a banker who's gone on to plant a church. We have a lawyer who's joined the other people to plant churches. And back then we have the story of George, who at the age of 15 became a street child when his parents died. And George had 5 siblings, 1 sister and 4 brothers. And all 6 of them lived in the streets. We took George in. Today, George has graduated from college. He's working in a bank. And all the other children are also doing the same. And so we have his books there for free. It's only 35 pages. It's an easy read. I hope that you can take one. In spite of all the academic and theological studies you're doing, you can take one and read it at your spare time to tell you the story of George. But I know time is spent, but I want to invite Francis for 5 minutes to just tell you his story. because he's one of the children who grew up at the Village of Hope, and he'll just tell you how he got into the Village of Hope and what he's doing now. So Francis, if you come up, and I know lawyers don't talk for 5 minutes, but try.
Amen. Well, my story with the Village of Hope actually began sometime in 1979 when I was born to a very, very poor family. My mother was a slave girl, and my dad was my mother was a slave girl, and my dad was an alcoholic because he lost his job in 1982. Now, my mother's parents were fetish. Actually, both parents were fetish background. So she was donated to the Trokoshi shrine to serve in the shrine as a slave girl. And that's how come she had no training, no skills. And these were my parents. And they managed to give birth to 6 of us, plus 1 adopted child. So in all, we were all 9 in the family. And because there was nothing, no training, no skills, no money, so all of us have to become street kids, working on the streets to keep the family. Very sadly, our firstborn, Vinoria, who was supposed to lead the business, was unable because she was blind. Now, she wasn't born blind, she only had measles. But here were parents who did not understand that medical condition. They didn't even have money to take her to clinic. What was worse was that they attributed the condition to witchcraft and their worldview being that of fetish. So all of us had to just join in the family business. And I remember as kids, we were all end up on the street trying to sell to make sure that we get money to go to school. So the whole of my basic school and then the junior high school, I had to remain on the street to do all those things. In fact, what was worse was that in the junior high school, which was between the 7th and the 9th grade, where my parents were living, they couldn't pay for the basic utilities and they got kicked out. So we had to become complete street kids, sleeping in front of shops, in front of cinemas, sometimes in the marketplaces, and at the same time had to go to school, combining these two together. But God being so good, I was able to go through till I got to the senior high school, which here is between the 9th and the 12th grade, the 10th and 12th grade. And it was at the senior high school that my condition even became very worse. Because apart from the first admission fee I paid, I could never pay any more fees till the final year. And I was at the verge of dropping out of school. In fact, at that time, I had even risen through my student activities to become the leader of the student body, the president of over 1,200 students. But I was still sleeping in a small wooden kiosk on the roadside. And every morning I would have to beg for money on the street before I go to school. And at the point that I was dropping out of school, that was when I came in contact with one of our teachers, who was one of the first aspirants of the Village of Hope. So he introduced me to the Village of Hope, and I was adopted. My fees got paid. For the first time, I received love, hope, and care. And that changed my story. Because of the hope I received, I was able to finish, went ahead to finish with my bachelor's, went back to the Village of Hope to serve during my national service. Then I gained admission again into University of Ghana to do a second bachelor's in law. Then went to the Ghana School of Law to do my bar, got called to the bar 2 years ago, did a program in master's in sociology, and currently doing another master's in oil and gas law. Basically, with all that I've received from the Village of Hope, my life has become a ministry to God. And my work is indeed service to God and administration to other people I come across with. And currently in Ghana, we're doing all kinds of work to help many more others. The love that we have received, we believe that it is a matter of obligation to give back that same love to our society. In brief, this is my story, and this is my song. In this song, I keep praising God. God bless you.
Amen.